Good evening. I'm welcoming you to the Finance Committee meeting, April 28, 2025, Cleveland Heights City Council. The roll call is myself as Chair, Gail Larson, Vice Chair Anthony Maddox Jr.
Here.
Member Jim Posh.
Here.
And we also have in attendance Council President Kuda, Councilors Cobb and Petrus, and Mayor Sarin has joined us. Addie Ballister, our Council Clerk, is here. And then Director Harrison, Finance Director, and I will let you introduce your new Assistant Director first, so go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Rashawn Caldwell as our new Assistant Director of Finance. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Rashawn. I first met Rashawn in 2013. She was the revenue manager at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. And she and I worked together for 8.5 years at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. We went through 8 audits. We went through 8 budgets. We went through 8 CAFRs together. She primarily focused on the revenue side, and I primarily focused on the expense side. And we are going to replicate that here in the city of Cleveland Heights. She is a graduate of Middle Tennessee State University. She is a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and her degree was in accounting. So she is a tried and true accountant. She spent the first 7 years of her career at the city of East Cleveland, where she worked very closely with Director Klingskill. She worked there as accountant and as the chief accountant. She transitioned to the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport in 2011. Her first two years there, she worked as the capital projects accounting manager. And since 2013, she's worked as the revenue accounting manager. So she is, in my opinion, an outstanding accountant. And I think she is a definite asset to the city of Cleveland Heights.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. Glad you're here. Okay, first on the agenda, January, February financial statements.
Rashawn and I actually just printed these.
Warm.
So they are still warm, but I do have income statements and cross-fund reports for all council. So I will just pass these around. I'll just give you a handful of these. And I'll get those going. One. Perfect. Thank you.
We only spent $50.
And here are the cross-fund reports, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4.
Oh, it's big. Okay.
So we can talk a little bit about the income statement. Page 3 of the income statement, you look at the year-to-date actual amount, which is the third column. You look down to the bottom, you will see a revenue total of $10.1 million and an expense total of $9.5 million, which gives, and again, these are through, these are the months of January and February. So that gives us a total net gain of about $564,000.
In black.
Yes. Yes. Revenue 10.1 million, expense 9.5, 564 net gain. And that's the third column, page 3 of the income statement.
Is that where you expected us to be at this point?
Well, our revenue, let's take a quick look at our revenue. And I'm not completely familiar with the cyclical nature of our revenue. But our revenue was budgeted at about 8.3 million per month. So after 2 months, you know, if you were to just flatten it out, 2 months of revenue would be about 16 million.
Mayor Sarah?
Sure, there are certain things that that will sort of come after the first 2 months of the year. A bulk of our municipal income tax, for instance, might go through, of course, the RETA process, people paying that income tax, and some of those people paying it close to the deadline in April wouldn't show up in January or February. Additionally, some of our property tax revenue that we are expecting won't show up except in those half year. Some people do pay it sort of on a monthly basis, and we might get some money through the county based on that, but there are certain markers throughout the year. I'd have to research sort of when those things come through, but like the municipal income tax, for instance, we wouldn't necessarily expect that to be evenly broken up across the months.
Thank you.
One thing that I do want to point out for this income statement that I should have brought to your attention, but I did not. This income statement is just for the general, which is 60 million, so that's 5 million per month. So you figure 2 months should be 10.
Okay. Cross-fund report. This is a new format for us, so bear with me if I'm trying to compare it to what we got at the end of December.
Okay. So
Anything jump out at you?
The cross-fund report really just kind of shows our cash position, again, on page 3. It shows our beginning balance down at the bottom of almost 111 million. It shows total debits, total credits, and then it shows our ending balance at 108 million. And this 108 million should tie out to our bank recs. I spoke to Donna right before she went home in regards to where we are with our bank recs. January is not complete, February is not complete, and March is not complete. This is due to some delays that we're having in terms of processing payments. One of my employees, her mom is fairly terminal. She's responsible for these entries, and so we're running a little bit behind. And that's one of the things that Rashawn is going to get us caught up on.
Anybody have any questions? Because I'm jumping between two formats, so this report that we got, financial statements, end of December 2024, does it tie to any of, all the numbers are there, all the way through 999. Is there something that I could see on here that would tie to this report?
I would have to go back and reconcile. I would have to take this format. Again, for this meeting, I wasn't really sure what format you had anticipated.
That's fair, because we were gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we pretty much put this together in the 11th hour because we didn't want to come here to this meeting empty-handed. So we thought that this was some good information to show how we have performed for the first 2 months of this year. But I can go back and actually take a look at this format that you're used to and see how they tie. And then next meeting, we can probably present something that's a little more used to what you're seeing.
That would work for me as well. So I'm assuming you could just push a button and get this one, right? You didn't have to do extra manual stuff?
Exactly.
That's what I wanted to ask. How much extra work would that be if this report is much easier for you to pull? I don't want you to go backwards just to do that unless the committee is saying I just want to make sure this isn't time consuming because you guys have your hands on a bunch of stuff and the information is definitely here.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something that we can do on our side to make that easier, I don't know how long it would take to do that from what we're getting now. especially if this isn't even the format that we may want going forward. That's why I just don't want you doing that if later on in our discussion in the meeting, we completely change the format anyway, you know? I just,
So this is an auto report, call this an auto report. This is a push the button, get the report. This is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So this is gonna be a little bit more labor intensive.
okay.
If you could just pick one or two of the major accounts that are on here and do us, kind of help us how they would tie at the next meeting, that's all I would hope for, is that, so that we can understand, because certainly for you to be able to just pull a report off the system is far more preferable to having to manipulate an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
Because we talked about this takes somebody hours to do.
Yes.
And that's not what we intend to do, and that's why, if nobody has any other questions, Counselor Posh.
Well, I mean, I think what I'm interested in seeing is something that is consistent and something that you don't have to manipulate in Excel. That's just too much busy work, and there's talk, there's some expectation, I think, that we have about replacing the financial system we have. We know that's many months worth, that's a many month journey. I'm on the city website right now, looking at, I mean, the last full set of financials I think that are out here is the 2024 semi-annual. There may be a third. There's a third quarter there
quarter,
too. I'm just gravitating to the semi-annual. I hope that you could meet with committee leadership and kind of come up with a format that doesn't necessarily mimic something like this, but something that's a little bit more, something that gives us like year-to-date, budget comparisons to see where we are with revenues, where we should be. I don't know if your financial system actually, breaks down, revenues on the budget plan has a certain amount of revenues coming in. So up until now, you don't want to find out at the end of the year that you're going to miss your target. You kind of want there should be like monthly financial planning and going, hey, look, ordinarily in April, we get this amount of revenue.
Okay.
And with all the adjustments that we get from the county, because some of that is changing this year, I mean, what does that look like? What does the income tax, revenue typically look for February? I mean, what do we put in the budget to come up with, and where we are with that? With an explanation, generally there would be, I would think, a staff memo that would come up. Now, maybe doing that monthly, like a staff memo, that's probably onerous. That's probably too much work, unnecessary work, I should say. But certainly quarterly, I think you would want to see that, and I think the city has produced that in the past.
And I think we should put together a report quarterly that really takes a look at all of our revenue streams, your property taxes, your income taxes, and just all the various revenue streams. There's probably a dozen of them. And take a look. The total number is 100 million, 251. That's our revenue target for this year. And then take a look at what those look like budgeted quarterly, and then take a look at what we've collected. There will be some cyclical nature to that report, but at the same time, we can take a look at what's come in versus what we budgeted to come in. And that'll give you a better snapshot of how we're doing financially. And then we can do the exact same thing on the expense side. Take a look at, what we projected to spend for expense and capital, which is about 132 million. And then, year to date, what have we spent, what's encumbered? And then pretty much, and I feel very, very confident that we can put together something for you quarterly. Ideally, once we get our new financial system, should be no problem giving a report like that to you real time on a monthly basis.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Counselor Maddox is first. Sorry, Mayor.
I was in response to that question.
Okay, all right.
I didn't want to lose the thread, if unless it was on the same topic.
Okay, go ahead.
So I did want to mention Director Hairston and Mr. Feltz and I very early on when Director Hairston came aboard, we're talking about sort of changing how we do budgeting over the course of a year. because historically Cleveland Heights has not done budgeting in as precise a way as any of us would have preferred. And specifically, I know that there are some challenges to it in terms of, we might expect an expenditure to take place in a particular time during the year, and then it, contracting takes longer and it's, an additional month or something like that. But, having it broken down in a monthly way, at least in terms of an estimate of when we would expect revenues and when we would expect expenditures to take place, that's something that we've had our eye on basically all year. We just haven't gotten there yet. But this is something that, again, historically Cleveland Heights has just budgeted for a year as a block of time. And so what you'll see in the system is we're expecting X dollars of revenue, and that's front loaded. X amount of expenditure, and that's front loaded, instead of doing a more planful way. And this early on in this new government, there just hasn't been the opportunity to make a change that dramatic. But it's definitely on our radar and definitely in the plan. I just want to let you know that.
Councilor Maddox?
I was gonna tell you, that my question was answered. I just was gonna agree with you that I think just showing us a couple so we've got a template to be able to do that was the way to go. That was all.
Yeah. The other part of that is if you're talking about giving us budgeted versus actual on a monthly basis, you have figures here that you could use without going into a whole bunch of analysis and if there's an account that jumps out at you, you can write us a memo and say, well, this one's, I'm looking at it and I'm a little concerned, or I'm really happy, we take positives and negatives as well, so.
Okay.
If we could just do that, and if it gets to be, so simplify rather than make it to take too much time. I also, we're good to move on to format, because I think we all agree that we understand that this format takes the finance department a long time to prepare. And so we're looking for alternative ways. This is a great start. I'm really happy you were able to pull that off the system. So, do you have any ideas about if you start with that on a monthly basis and you put it in some kind of format that can give us some information?
And I would hate to do this to both of you. I wanted to retool our question a little bit too. Is there something that you used previously as you're working together? I was curious about that as I was coming in today. What system that we might have been able to pull from? That would, number one, be easy for you, but maybe two, you've had some experience navigating in terms of the kind of reports we're looking for. I was just curious.
So we use the Advantage system at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. We have, our BVAs came out on the 9th workday. So on April 9th, our BVAs would come out. Those reports go to each department manager with budget oversight. It shows them how much their budget is, how much they've spent, and how much remains. It's something that it was automatic. The ninth workday, they were in emails to all the managers with budgetary responsibility.
By the way, Madam Chair, this discussion in the interview process was one of the things that sold me on Mr. Hairston as our new director. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that in a consistent way.
Okay, well, I think that if everybody's okay with that, we'll let you work on that for us for the next meeting, which will be either end of May or into June. So it's not gonna happen tomorrow. It does give you some time. And like I said, if there's something I need to know about, it's not gonna be ready or whatever, please let me know.
Okay, will do.
Pretty flexible. I would like to know, go ahead, Councilor Petrus.
I think I heard you say Advantage. Is that, I just Googled it, is that CGI Advantage?
CGI.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I did want to know if you're about ready to post the fourth quarter 2024 financials onto the city website?
That is in production. So I would anticipate the fourth quarter being posted very soon.
And do you have an update on the audit, state audit? Do they have what they need?
They have everything that they need, so those are also at the end of production. We should have those very soon.
Are you looking at end of May, June?
I would expect to have those within the next 30 days.
Great.
Wait,
Counselor Petrus.
sorry for clarification, the unaudited financial statements or report back from the state auditor?
The unaudited financial statements.
Okay.
So there was a few last pieces of capital items that they were waiting for. We've met all their requirements. They have everything. So I'm looking for unaudited financial statements. After we can wrap that up. So I'm looking, one of the things that I spent quite a bit of time doing is recruiting. I'm looking for additional help, additional manpower, because I'm really looking forward to getting us 100% caught up in 2025. So 2026 is not like 2025. Once we can nail down the 2023 financial statements, the financial audit, it's got to go right into 2024, and we got to put a button on that. If I can get those two accomplished, and then simultaneously start on the 2026 budget. So by the end of this year, I've got 3 key deliverables that I'd like to accomplish.
Yeah, that'd be
So
great.
it's going to be a lot.
So to build on Counselor Petrus's question, so you've delivered everything to Zupka, our auditor.
Yes,
They send everything on to the state.
not yet. They have not. They have not.
All right, so we are gonna be into August perhaps before we see 2023 audit completed, report to us?
I need to speak with them in terms of how long they're going to need in order to turn that around.
Okay,
I'm thinking that August seems late. I'm hoping 60 days from now. So let's call this the beginning of May and June. I'm hoping they can turn it around in 60 days. After we can actually have audited financial statements for 2023, that's when we can commence on 2024. And I'm hoping, and again, Mr. Phelps is still on board. We're getting hour here, hour there from him. He's still on board. And I'm also looking at bringing on another interim consultant in order for us to put all this together. So.
thank you. Go ahead, Counselor Posh.
So I heard in one of our last meetings that there was going to be a bit of just like we had a delay in 2023 to get those books audited, there would be, some delay for 2024.
Yes.
So in time for our next meeting next month, can you clarify a little bit about what you expect? When do you believe you'll be able to get the 2024 into the state? Get the necessary gap changing done. Because I think there really needs to be an expectation with council on when we would expect audited financial statements. That was sort of a real hairball this past couple months. There was a lot of loose expectations. We didn't know what was going on. I think we'd all be in a better place if we just knew upfront exactly what to expect and not expect, with the understanding that stuff changes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what these meetings are for, to better understand that. So.
When we were at the airport, we could turn things over in 120 days in terms of having things submitted. And once they were submitted, typically 60 days after that, we would have the final report. So I think if I have the right personnel in place, we should be able to replicate that and have, we'll start on 2024 and from beginning to end, 120 days. So
generally, like 120 days, a half a year in order to get your audited financial statements. That's sort of been the best practice that I'm aware of when it comes to cities and school districts.
Mhm.
And as close as we can keep to that, the better we're going to be.
Mhm.
Understanding that you're building a department from not so much.
it's a challenge. It's very challenging. But when I think back at the my time at the airport, about 120 days for the production, and then 60 days for the review. So that's 180 days, about 6 months, as you say.
You good? Committee's okay? All right. our next section does not involve you. So I'm delighted to meet you, Rashawn, and I look forward to having you come to other meetings that we have. And as Director Hairston, if you have anything you need from me, let me know, please.
Will do, thank you,
All right, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Thank you. Welcome.
thank you.
All right,
We're excused?
you may feel free to go home for dinner, yes.
All right, just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Leave some for us. Thank you so much for bringing these reports too. Much appreciated. So, Councilor Maddox, you're up.
Yes. Hey guys, so I know I'm supposed to be doing a report on lending programs available to predominantly African American neighborhoods. It's been so funny because as I've been speaking with folks and meeting, even today and preparing for this meeting, I've got to start out by saying this even for the public and the committee here. If we had had this meeting 3 months ago, we would have had an entirely different conversation than the one we're having now. And just based on some of the meetings that I've had in the last 3 weeks, the entire landscape of programming across the country has completely changed. And so I kind of want to walk through the public exactly why that is first, and then kind of talk about what that's going to look like with some of the existing programs and why some of them that are currently here may be exhausted when their current funds run out. I don't have an exhaustive list of all of the programs, but I wanted to share a wide variety of what's commonly connected here. But before I get into that, just kind of explaining, number one issue is many of these programs are obviously financed through federal grants and the federal government. Many of these programs specifically target DEI and specifically target minorities. And so retooling those programs is a must because many of them are sitting on funds that were allocated within the last year that are not just simply not going to be available anymore. So everyone from our community development programs or organizations who deal specifically with this type of work to banks are having to retool and kind of re-promote what this looks like. So you're going to start to see different language around this. And so you're going to start to see things like impoverished neighborhoods or underserved communities to try to still target that audience without those triggers in terms of getting those grants and that money to come through those programs. And so you're starting to see that happen now. And so as I'm sharing some of these, I just want to give you a sense of that. And just for the public, before I even jump into these, I just hope the public knows that this council and the administration has also approved our own program, which also impacts minorities here through our down payment assistance program through ARPA. And I want to make sure before I share any of these programs that our residents need, we also allocated money for those programs as well right here in our city. And I'm hoping going forward, there's going to be new ways to fund those programs and keep them going. But again, I just don't know. So there are 5 that I wanted to give you and that are strong right now that it looks like they're going to be able to be funded going forward somehow. The first is the Cuyahoga County Cleveland Housing Network, which everyone can use, but specifically reaches out to minorities in that program. And by the way, everything that I'm presenting here, I'm going to make sure I send out to all of council, and so we can put it on the site as well, because they also have hyperlinks to these programs.
Okay.
So Cuyahoga County has a down payment assistance program that's tied. There are it's tied by area, it's tied by income, and there are several other parameters that they have to have in order to get that program. But that is a program that is still heavily promoted throughout the minority community. All counties do not have a similar program like this or are funded the same way, but it is something that is continued to be available, at least right now through the county. I'm talking to some of our Cuyahoga County Council people. I can tell you they're not that confident in terms of where the money is coming from, that they'll be able to provide the same amount of services that they have previously. I asked how many folks have used this program, and so I asked for a report because apparently this is trackable to see how many folks in Cleveland Heights have gone this program rate. So I'm waiting to get that information back. I was just curious since it's a county resource there. Another program that I know isn't widely used, at least in our area, is the Welcome Home Ohio program, which is for first-time home buyers. That is also targeted, and I've seen this program targeted in Columbus and Cincinnati and promoted a lot more in terms of minority neighborhoods, but not really here. And it runs pretty much the same way that a lot of the other down assistance programs are. There are parameters in terms of income, location, the type of home that you can purchase, the type of area in terms of how much impact that you can have, but that is available as well. The third program is called the Believe Mortgage Program. That is a program specifically targeted for here in Cleveland in a wider area. And this program is interesting because you can pay as little as 3% in down payment costs through this program for your home. It can be considered, they look at folks with lower income credit or lower credit for this program as well to still put them in a home. There are some parameters around that. But one of the things about this is you can take advantage of the second mortgage home program combined with this. And so you can add this program to other additional programs that have been offered as well across the county. And then the OHFA program, the home buyer program, which is kind of connected to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, and it's connected into the other Ohio program as well. It also offers 30-year fixed mortgages, conventional loans through these services. And then the last one I want to bring up, which I find very interesting, and I've been trying to get information on this, and I don't know if anyone knows anyone who's connected specifically to the Cleveland Realtors Association, They have a minority home ownership program called the Chenoa Fund that I had never heard of before until recently.
It's an interesting name.
Very interesting. They're targeting Black communities across the entire United States, but they've done some work here very strong in Cleveland. So I'm trying to get additional information about this because I'm blown away by it. I've never heard of an organization really targeting these individuals. And so they put them through a program. There's grants being offered, but then they'll also walk them through helping them find a home, obviously, which kind of makes sense. And so once I looked at it, I realized it is a great connection for them to get new clients and customers and kind of walk people through this. But specifically, this program was created to fight inequity and injustice. And so I'm very curious to see how it's funded. And so I'm looking to get more additional information on that. But I brought it to the table today because I was just curious if anyone here had ever heard of that program before. I didn't know that there was a realtor program.
Does it stand for something?
No, no acronym. And I thought it was very interesting. And I
What's it
have
called again?
the Chenoa program, Cleveland Realtor Association, Chenoa program. And it's spelled CHENOA Fund. It's the Chenoa Fund.
The Welcome Home program, Welcome Home Ohio, is state program.
That's a statewide program.
How does that look in terms of perspective for future availability?
So I was talking to several folks today. This program could be funded. The question is whether or not our state leaders will allocate those funds to other programs. The federal government has already guaranteed that the big pool or pot of money that's coming out of is still coming.
Okay.
But they can allocate it to a lot of different resources, and that's why they're curious about that. In fact, there's even been some talk about allocating it based on geographics, which then leads into political issues and things like that. And so we're wondering what that looks like for Cuyahoga County.
Right.
But it looks like if this gets defunded, it won't be because we didn't receive the funds. It'll be because the State House, reallocated it somewhere else.
Get diversified.
Yeah. I wanted to share these. There's 8 other organizations I wanted to share today. And the reason why is the programs that I just mentioned, for the most part, if you talk to nonprofits or folks who are dealing with folks trying to get home ownership programs, many folks in the minority community cannot or don't qualify for these programs yet. There's some work they have to do. There's some income barriers. And so I wanted to share not just those programs, but the programs that are in place to help prepare them to go into those programs and do some hand-holding for them. And one of the largest around a financial literacy program is administered by Benjamin Rose. It's been available for some time now. I'm not quite sure how it's funded. I've reached out to them to get additional information on how it's funded, but that is a program that many minorities step into to get a greater understanding of their finances, of their credit, how to maneuver around those things. One of the longest standing ones has been the PNC Fairfax Connection. So I put that number 2 on the list. It is by far one of the healthiest. PNC, even National City, did a great job of engaging with folks in terms of financial literacy, not just the minority community, but all communities. They even opened up separate separate facilities just for classes, just for financial literacy, and many of them are still open today. But the Fairfax Connection will work with anyone within the county, but they specifically work with folks in low income, trying to get them in those homes and connecting them with. And one of the things I like about the PNC Fairfax Connection is there are folks there who are also working with folks in our broader cities to talk about what is available in terms of property and real estate there that they can use to reinvest, including in the county land bank. And so that offers another opportunity for them. One of the other large programs that is on the chopping block is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve doesn't have a program for financial literacy. They have a program that teaches teachers how to teach financial literacy, and that is on the block. So literally you could come in and community organizations, cities, anyone could come in and bring someone in, put them through that training program, put them through those manuals, and then they could run that program.
Madam Chair,
Sarah?
I have a question about that. I know that some of the requirement for curricula in the state of Ohio is financial literacy training, but I think that it is, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's relatively vague in terms of the requirement, the specific requirements. Maybe this is something that even if the program at the federal level goes away, there still may be an opportunity to use the school district to partner with the Federal Reserve and maybe us, depending on when something like that would get taught or where, to at least provide it as a part of, sort of the curricular requirement from the state on local school districts. I could learn more about this, but it's something that occurred to me just.
No, and I'm glad you're bringing it up because of the next program that I was looking at, actually the next two, both Tri-C, and there's called a Bank Student Financial Literacy Program. Both of those target. So a lot of these programs realized they were targeting folks too late. And so they started putting them back in the schools. And so a lot of the current financial literacy programs, the money's been pulled back towards adults and put back into our high schools. And so you're seeing that to really start those programs earlier. And so I did want to share that with the team here and really talk about it. And as I was wondering that, I'm wondering if this is something that we could offer in the community center as programming or something along with both adults and students to partner with them.
On a regular basis.
Yeah. Because there are several people who certify folks and who offer the materials outside of the Federal Reserve. So that's something absolutely worth looking into in terms of programming. The other one I wanted to share is called the Buckeye Community Bank. They are not in Cleveland, they are in Elyria, but they want to expand their footprint for financial literacy. So that's something they started to work through. And then there is a credit union here called the Faith Community Credit Union, United Credit Union. It is by far, and I left them last on the list because it's by far the most engaging, the most connected through our faith-based community, the minority community, and all of our leaders. I think most of us have an account there just to support that because of how well they walk folks through all kinds of financial literacy programs, loan programs, home ownership programs there, and they're right smack dab in the middle of that urban community down there off of Kinsman. And so you see all of these folks able to just navigate and go through there to get these programs, and they also hold major events throughout the community. So they tend to take the lead on a lot of things that we do. One of their board members, Larice Purnell, is the CEO of Clee Consulting, an amazing man who also runs the Real Black Friday, promoting small black businesses. He also oversaw, his team oversaw Glen Village off of 105. They're managing that for the city of Cleveland, but they also run financial literacy programs in actually Glen Village and around the city of Cleveland as well in connection with this. And so there's this talk of really bubbling it up. We know that these programs are being cut, and by say we, I say us in the faith community. And so one of the things we've committed to doing across the country is to start raising money so that we can start to fund these programs ourselves. And so you're going to start to see not just churches, but all faith institutions really start to buy property, invest in programming so that we can kind of replace some of these gaps that are happening from the federal level. And so I would say to anyone who's watching us today and to this committee, a lot of these programs are going to drastically change even by the summer. Many of them are not funded past the end of this year. Some of them aren't funded past August. And so just based on how they move and maneuver, and a lot of them are going to pause the programming to retool and change the descriptions for the type of people they're going to try to help and impact in the community in hopes that they can save some of these funds. But it's unfortunate that when you start talking about DEI and minorities right now, anything that can be cut is being cut. And many of these programs, folks are really, really concerned about, and there won't be a replacement for it. And so you see organizations trying to come together to fill in that gap. And so I want to share it today. I'm going to do an extensive work session on this as well with some of these. And I'm hoping with the Finance Committee to really bring some folks in and have a conversation about some of the strongest programs. But we really are a couple of months away from seeing where we are in terms of the landscape of this. People are being very careful about what they're promoting and how in terms of development projects, in terms of home ownership programs, and in terms of any grant opportunities across the board. So it's been very interesting.
Anybody have questions? President
I was
Kudo?
gonna make a comment. So when I was at Shaker, keep in mind, I retired 5 years ago. I taught financial literacy as part, so it's mandatory. They did an interesting thing. They put it in like 1/4 of the American history course.
Really?
So you had to teach it. So I'm sorry. And the reason, I think, I actually never asked this, but because that's a requirement to graduate, financial literacy became a requirement to graduate. They did it in the back door. But here's what happened. Anybody who flunked American history and I'm going to get to a point in a second, but anybody who flunked American history had to take financial literacy separate to graduate. You could not graduate without it because it was a requirement in a course that already was a graduation requirement. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I doubt if that is I would assume that's a school board to school board decision. I would refer this to you.
It's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I can tell you, we had something similar to that, but it wasn't in high school. It was in middle school called life skills. And you couldn't graduate without that. And it everything from balancing a checkbook, even learned how to type in there. It was more of a lot of different things, but half the semester was on that. And I was curious, but I had a question for you. Was that, who developed the curriculum? Was it something that you all picked up?
You know, luckily somebody handed me, the department chair handed me the curriculum because I would not have been able to create this semester course. I mean, because it was a semester course if you didn't take it when you were supposed to take it, which was as part of the fourth quarter of American history. But the larger point is that that is the time. You're leaving high school. Yeah, a lot of these kids are going to college, but some of them aren't. And I never knew any of this stuff when I graduated from high school. Practically everything I taught them, I didn't know when I was, sitting in their seat. And I thought it was valuable. I think it's the right place and the right time. I believe it was 10th grade. So, that's when they were teaching them at Shaker. I can't say what other schools did. I'm assuming it was not part of the curriculum at Heights.
I don't believe so.
Not when I graduated.
But that's something we could talk to Rep. Brent about as far as, I don't think this would be a partisan thing. Maybe everything is, I don't know, but I just don't see anybody saying this is a bad idea. I know that's not where we're going with this.
No, I think it's all in how it's promoted too, but I definitely think it's necessary. I would love to see where that curriculum came from. And the reason I'm saying that is way back when I worked for Key, part of my job was to train on processes and procedures for different banking and financial issues, everything from foreclosures to first mortgages, it's just to bankruptcies and repos. People don't have a clue Folks don't know when a car can enter repo. They don't know when it reports and what it looks like, or even how to read a credit report. And so a lot of the folks, sad to say, that we were sending out to the branches, we're just getting this education for the first time as they're sharing it with customers, just because the average adult really never had that conversation. No one sat them down and say, this is what happens with your credit and how to balance or budget things. And so I'm just very curious to see what we can do here in the city to kind of help mitigate that.
Is there a way to get a hold of a copy of that curriculum?
Oh, I would say so.
Mayor Sarin?
Well, I think specific to the Shaker Heights piece, that's a possibility, but additionally, the state has model curriculum for financial literacy on their website. That's at education.ohio.gov.
Do we have some resources then?
It might be something to merge the state's model curriculum with the Federal Reserve's curriculum and sort of see what works best.
Just real quickly, once a year, there was a social studies teacher that took their students to the Fed. That was, what do we call that, a
Field trip.
field trip, yeah.
And also, just FYI, they have it for high school, middle grades, 4th through 6th grade, and kindergarten through grade 3 as well. They've got different.
Get out of here.
Like, what do you do in your
Ohio's
allowance?
model.
Let's ask Becca about that one. Eddie, did you have something to?
Well, I had just looked. Yeah, I sent Anthony a link on the Genoa Fund that I found online. I'm also having a friend of mine look into it, see if they have anyone that's worked on it directly. But it looks like it's a down payment assistance program for qualifying borrowers with a minimum credit score of 600, but there's no income limits, multiple second mortgage options as well. Don't have to be a first-time home buyer.
What's the program's name?
It's Genoa Fund by CBC Mortgage Agency, which
Funding source.
was formed in 2013 by the Cedar Band Corporation, a nationally chartered housing finance agency.
Interesting. So they partner with this agency to create a program?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Councilor Petrus? Thank
There was
you.
a question about whether our school district has or requires a financial literacy course. It turns out that Ohio state law now requires it. So you have to have 1/2 credit of financial literacy in order to graduate, beginning with classes entering 9th grade after July 2022.
Go home and ask my kids, like, hey.
What are the curriculum?
Right.
It does seem though, like for people who didn't have that when they were in high school, when they were in school, that we still have a group demographic that require the financial literacy. And so it's like we have two components here to work with. And so I would ask you, because we know, number one, the whole picture is evolving with what's happening in DC. And you're talking about 1 to 2 months even, and might take longer, but also, so what money's available out there, because we would like to share that with people.
Right.
But we're not ready to do that yet because we're uncertain ourselves. And then working on a financial literacy programs that could be offered at the community center perhaps, and also trying to find out what our coursework is here at Heights High and any other school in our city. Timing wise, like, would you be willing to I know you're gonna come to our next meeting, but present, so we do an ongoing update and we kind of discuss where we're at and.
Because I'm meeting with a couple of organizations between here and now anyway, so I have
Okay.
updates from them. They just wanted to kind of get the landscape, because some of them have submitted things to the federal government. They would have got an answer back by now, actually February. And so that's what they're hoping that they have an answer on.
So I'm gonna put you on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Councilor Posh.
So kind of in the spirit of where's the end game for this?
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's generally a strong consensus that financial literacy is important for our community, hugely. And what can we do, the people in this room,
Yeah.
to solve that? and maybe an idea, maybe it's not the right idea, but maybe it's an idea, is maybe spend 5 minutes every one of our meetings, at the end of the meeting, just a crash course on a particular subject. And I mean, just not like, compound interest. I'm pulling things out of thin air here, okay? I mean, how do you buy a home? Or where do you go? Memorialize those and put them on council's website, and just sort of make a habit of it. We did this on the school district, but a little bit different topic area, but it came out of their finance. Scott Gaynor, who's our retiring, our community's retiring fiscal officer for the school district, he did, the 3 things. I think he called it the 3 things. And every monthly meeting he had with our school board, he brought up 3 financial things, just sometimes interesting topics, sometimes it was about property taxes, sometimes, just stuff that you wouldn't hear. And they're memorialized on a list. And keep on pointing people to that. But this is a way that maybe we could bring awareness to things maybe we may not even know about. And just maybe make it a thing where there's a round robin where, don't make one person responsible for it, unless you want to take this on because it seems like you're really interested in this. But, make it maybe a shared duty where, people come in, us or an individual, invite somebody in to talk about one of these things per month. Or maybe it's your turn and you give a presentation on something, but keep it short.
I can tell you, starting this program, one of the things that I was looking at over just the last couple of years is a program like this, and even talking to the mayor about it, bringing programming to the community center. You've got adults and you've got youth coming in. I think is a huge opportunity because if you put them through a program like that and someone can successfully complete it, we actually own properties. And so I would like to connect one of our issues and solve it with another, because imagine now you have someone here in this community who's renting, and now there's a property that we have, or we're sending them to Future Heights, or we're sending them to Jimmy Hicks, and we're saying, hey, we've got someone who is house ready. They want to stay in this neighborhood, and now they've had the opportunity. So I'm hoping that we can build something where we're connecting the programming to the homes back in the neighborhood that we're already touching, and these other programs we're invested in. Because I think if we can put 50 people through a program and then send them back through to Start Right, Future Heights, any other program, now they're seeing this opportunity to stay right here, and they can really make that connection. And I don't know quite what that looks like, but in my mind, I think there are some homeowners we can create right here to get these homes back in the hands of more homeowners through this program. There are people who desperately want to stay, but they don't know how to navigate that roadmap. So I'm hoping we can talk about that. I know that's part housing too, but I think those two can absolutely be connected together.
It makes a lot of sense, and maybe there's some evolution to what you need to maintain a 100-year-old home.
That's, because
I'm learning about that right
the
now.
financial literacy, once you get the house, now we need training on how to maintain it and do those things. And so, it leads to other things. So thank you.
Well, that was fabulous. Thank you very much, and that gives us some fodder for our next meetings and gives us something really productive to do, I think. I did want to talk with the committee, unless anybody has anything else to contribute, about our next meeting date. I set it up for Addie helped me set it up for May 28th, 27th, but
Which is a Tuesday, Memorial Day,
yeah,
Monday.
and it is Memorial Day Tuesday. But Counselor Posh, you're gonna be out of town,
I'm out of town for 3 weeks at the end of May.
and when do you come back?
I am back in time for our meeting on June 2nd.
My birthday.
Coming back for your birthday, just saying.
We'll bring you a cake. Would you be available on Tuesday, Counselor Maddox?
The third?
The third. May 3rd?
No, June 3rd?
June 3rd, okay. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a second.
Oh, yeah, June 3rd.
Oh, yeah, I'm open.
Counselor Posh?
5:30.
All right,
Great day.
I'm gonna change it, Ms. Ballister, to the 3rd,
Got it.
all right?
Same time, 5:30, right?
Yep, I can do that. Okay, I'll take that off now.
5:30 is probably a better starting time for us. And if everybody's good, nothing else to contribute to the good of the order? I'm gonna adjourn this meeting at 6:53.